When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he put this question to his disciples: "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say he is John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But you," he said, "who do you say I am?" Then Simon Peter spoke up. "You are the Christ," he said, "the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Simon, son of Jonah, you are a happy man, because it was not flesh and blood that revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. So I now say to you, you are Peter, Petros, Kepha, rock, and on this Petros, Kepha, rock, I will build my church, and the gates of the underworld can never hold out against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be considered bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be considered loosed in heaven." And then he gave the disciples strict orders not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. The good news of the Lord. Hi everyone, good evening, and just a few words about the gospel reading of today. In the long history of Catholic tradition, this reading, especially verses 16 to 18, have been used traditionally as a proof text, as a kind of biblical foundation which explains why Catholics accept, as a matter of principle, the universal pastoral authority of the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, the successor of St. Peter, as vicar of Christ and visible leader of the church. In this reading, Jesus calls Peter rock. His name literally is Petros in Greek, Kepha in Aramaic. And it is upon the certain faith of Peter that Jesus will establish his community which he was bringing into being. And apart from this gospel reading from Matthew's gospel, there are also other Bible passages which support the idea that among all the disciples and the apostles, Peter had a special place. Peter, for example, was present at all the key moments of Jesus' life. To name two, for example, Peter was present at Mount Tabor at the Transfiguration, and Peter was also present at the agony in the garden when Jesus decided that he was going to go forward to the cross, regardless of what it would cost him. Peter is also uniquely charged out of all the apostles by Jesus with feeding his sheep, and this he does on the shores of the lake after his resurrection. Peter, finally, is often portrayed in the Gospels as a spokesman for the other 11 apostles. For example, in John chapter 6, when many people leave Jesus after preaching his doctrine about the bread of life, Jesus asks the apostles as a group, "And what about you? Do you want to go away too?" It is Peter who answers on their behalf, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the message of eternal life." Jesus designates Peter as rock, and he says, "Upon this rock I will build my church." If I had to explain what Jesus does with Peter there, in terms of a Trinidadian culture, I would say that Jesus designates Peter as his man of business. Your man of business or your woman of business is that person to whom you entrust your business affairs. You are going on a trip. You will be out of commission. You leave your personal, your banking, your financial, your family affairs in the hands of your man of business or your woman of business, someone extremely well known to you, someone whom you trust implicitly. This is the person who you would give your power of attorney. This is the person who has charge of your living will to make decisions about your health when you are incapacitated. And each and every one of us, therefore, in our own way, is called to become Jesus' man or woman of business. To put it in a nutshell, you and I are invited to make sure that whatever Jesus needs done is done in this world. That ultimately is the duty of the Supreme Pontiff, the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, to make sure as much as possible that the church of which he is the pastor does God's will. You and I, in a very similar way, are invited to make sure that God's will is done in our families, in our places of work, the places where we work and the places where we play. You and I are invited to become rock, people on whom Jesus can depend, his men or his women of business. Have a wonderful Sunday.